So basically, when we are talking about reactjs, right? Inside the reactjs, basically there is a component is core heart, you can say, into reactjs development. So that is the one thing. Another thing is that you also need to understand rendering, how you are populating, or maybe what we can call as particularly that DOM, right? You are basically fetching it. So how you are rendering it, right? So the render method is very important. Apart from that, many other component lifecycle methods are there, but you also need to understand. So as it is already named suggests here, there is a functional component versus a class component here. So component is a core heart of that, particularly what we can call as into reactjs development, right? So when we are developing any component with the help of function, a functional component is a plain JavaScript function that accepts the props as an argument returned as a React element. Okay. A React component, a class component requires you to extend the React component. So basically it is a class and it is a extending React dot component. And component that create a render function which returns the React element. Correct. So this is a basically a one difference. Then is a no render method used into a functional component. So there is a no render method here into a functional. It must have the render method. Class component must have the render method returning the JSX, right? JSX we have already discussed, but you can also just understand it, right? Returning the JSX. Also known as a stateless components. As they simply accept the data, display name in some form, they are mainly responsible for rendering the UI, right? So there is a no such state basically here, right? If you wanted to manage the state, right, we need to use the hooks, right? So use state, and there is a multiple other hooks we can use it, right? So basically when we are talking about functional component, but in component class component, there is a basically a particularly a life cycle of a component, and it is a basically stateful components, right? Because they implement logic and the state. So this is a basic. React lifecycle methods cannot be used into functional component. Component did mount, component will mount, right? So there is a multiple other methods are there, which is basically used for particularly into a this type of component here. Now hooks can be used in functional component to make them stateful. So as I already told you, if you wanted to manage the state, you can use the hooks. So there is a different hooks are there into a particular reactjs, that is we will see here, but this is a basically you can use the hooks here. It requires a different syntax in a class to implement the hooks. So there is a different syntax is required. So that is the basically very basic difference here, right? You can use that constant name set name react dot set state, and you can pass the name here. If you are talking about here, if you wanted to manage how you can basically manage the state, or maybe so you can use the state this dot state, and you can specify the name is equal to. So this is the main difference when we are talking about functional component, when we are talking about particularly a the way if you are setting up any property value, right, you can use react dot use state into this particular component. Here you can use this dot state inside the constructor. Constructor cannot be used constructor area as it needs to store the state, right? Because these are the functional component. This is a basically very important concept that is you need to understand. So till that time, basically use state, right? How to use the React usage both allows you to track the state in a functional component, right? And state generally refer to data or a property that need to be tracking in the application. Right? To use the hook state, you need to basically import into your component. So you need to import that particular input component. That is a basically very important point when we are talking about functional component, when we are talking about particularly a simple other component, when we are or a class component. So if you wanted to create any React tab, this is the basically command you can use is npx create React tab my app. So the name will be a my app. You will see there is a particular this my app folder will be getting created inside this directory. Okay, so any point of time, if you wanted to create any particularly a React app, you can use npx react create app and my app like this. So this command we have already discussed. So we, as I already telling you that you are just changing the editor. So earlier you are using that Eclipse and different editors. Now we are using a VS Code, but the command remains same. And we have already installed that npm. So npm installation process, I don't want to take you to into much more deep. So now you see basically this particularly a npm error. There is some error. Yeah. You can just clear the cache here. So sometimes you need to clear the cache here if you are facing this kind of an error related to any such kind of an errors like this. Okay. Also, you can see npm cache clear force. Forcefully if you wanted to delete something like that. Right? So you can clear the cache basically. So when we are running this command, right? Basically, you can just go up arrow here, create app again. So we are just trying to do it. So you see, So it is installing, there are some packages, right? Installing React, React DOM, React script, and CRA templates. That's why it is taking some time. So you can just try and wait for some times. Basically, before learning to a particularly a React.js, you also need to have a good understanding of that Java, JavaScript 6 concept, right? Export modules, import modules, right? Also, if you are defining any constant and so many other things, class, these things are already available in your Java 6, JavaScript 6. So this concept is basically very important, right? So it is a much more easy to learn, right? So basically, maybe in one of the sessions, we also cover that particularly Java 6 concept, which is really very important, which you can use it, right, before learning this reactjs, right? Because it is a mandate, so that it is whenever you are thinking this or seeing this kind of words and this kind of logic, you will understand, okay, this is a basically a particular type of syntax. So it is easy to learn and easy to understand. So because there is a basically that framework it is using built on top of that Java 6, JavaScript 6 concept. Now see, you see, now particularly here, this command. So you can say cd my app. So you can come up here and you can start just doing a npm start here. So we will also just go into a particularly that folder here, right? So you can just go into a file. You see, there is a my app folder is getting created. So inside the my app, right, package structure we have already discussed. The same package structure is basically getting created here. Inside the source folder, you will see app.js, index.js also you'll see, right? Nothing but we are just rendering here, right? Particularly a root. If you will just go and check it, basically, so this is a basically another functional component, functional app, and it is just returning this entire HTML element. So this is a one of the example of, you can say, it is a functional component here. So if whenever we are running this, right, here you will see into a terminal here. Okay, start. So before running it, basically, you can just say start. So root, if you will see, right, this npm start, now it is automatically starting the server, and now you will see, right, it is a basically coming, the page is coming here. So this is the way it will looks like, right? So that is a very simple a basic program if you can run it for a reactjs here. Now just going back to again. So we have seen basically a particularly app.js, right? Right. This is a particularly a style sheet here. So the functional component is returning that particularly a React element. So this is the basically entire element is React element, which is consist of nothing but that completely a HTML elements are it is returning here. So it is returning that complete division here, basically. So whatever things you are writing here, that will be written. This app is basically getting called from this index.js. You see here, React.this app.js we are calling here, right? And we have exported at least one. You need to export this module whenever you are using it, right? So export default module. So this is a basically a module. So that's why this export and import module, this concept is coming from the JavaScript 6. So that is you need to go through and you need to understand. It is not from the React side. Okay. So you will see here, right? So reactjs basically. So this is the way you can understand. This is the root is nothing but that is we have defined particularly a one root element. That is also I will just show it to you here. You see there is an index.html here. You see there is a this div id is a root here. So we are attaching everything into this div id root here, right? So this div id root, right? So we are using this div id, okay, to process all other things here. So whenever we are going to an index.js, we will what we are saying that react.create root. So we are creating a root on this particular div id here. And after that we are processing all other things. So we are adding whatever this element is returning by this app, right? App.js, that is we are attaching into a root here. Correct. So that's the basically overall whole and soul process that is you need to understand. Okay. Now, second point is basically how we can create a particularly another component. When we are talking about this is the way you can create that particularly class component here inside that index.js, because this is a starting point. So earlier we have used some different syntax. Now we are using that creating a class base here reacted like this. So component will unvoid mount here. So this particular method, right, called immediately before the mounting occurs and before the components render here. Okay, so this is the basically particularly the method requirement, and you can also see this is a basically where we can use it. Component did mount, it will be called immediately after the component is mounted. Setting state here will go trigger the re-rendering. Okay, so that is the basically change state is the basically another method here. So change state is our own method here, that is we will going to use it, correct? So in this is a render method. So as we already know that inside the functional component, you need to have a particularly what we can call as this render method should be there. Okay. So should component this mount here. So if you wanted to use it, then that is you can use it. Component will update. So if this component will update is basically used it, if it is a component this will update it here. So this will be getting printed into your console or maybe into a log here, right? Else you can just see react.render here and you can just call this test here. Okay. So this is the way you can use and you can try it for a functional. So these particular lifecycle method, if you need it, you can use it. If you don't need it, you can comment it also. Okay, like this. So you can just see here as of now, whenever you are just saying control S, it will be automatically getting compiled here. So first I will just control C. So we are terminating here. Right now we'll again start as a npm. So again, it is starting that. So you see gigs for the gigs like that, correct? Now, if you see for a particularly how you can see the particularly logs and other things, right? Extensions. So here you can see that particularly open that go to here into particularly more tools and the developer tools here. Inside the developer tools, you can also see particularly a console. So any other things if you wanted to understand and debug or any other things you can see like this, that is you can just see it. So now if you're just coming back to a particularly so you will see this is a gigs for the gigs. Hello world is getting printed here. So this is the way you can write that particularly a component here. It is not required. This particularly a log output also you can see into it, right? Then console.log into for console here, right? Apart from that, if you wanted to just comment out, you don't need these methods here. Let's say component did mount. These methods we don't need it, right? Component will unmount when this method getting called or not. If there is a very specific purpose for constructor, you can pass the properties. These properties you can use this dot set state, and you can just use hello world like this. And you can whenever you are just changing the state like this. Let's say if I just wanted to remove this one, and if I will see that change this dot set state, and you are just passing that hello and things, right? So earlier it was that hello world, then we have seen that hello gigs. Correct. So whenever this change state will be getting called to find this, when we are clicking on click. So whenever we are doing an on click, basically press here. So on click on this, then it will be basically changed to a particular, the state will be getting changed here in that case. So we are also using that particularly state is getting changed for from here this hello world to a hello gigs. Right. These methods also, if you wanted to see, you can try it. Otherwise, these methods are also lifecycle methods. Component should component update here, right? Component will update here. Component did update. If the component before that update, after the component update, right, like that. So in that case, these scenarios or these methods are getting working here. Now you can just see here. Now control C. So you can just write that basically again npm start. So if you will just see here, right, again it is coming up here, right? So you see we have used that particularly on click. On the on click, we are calling that change state. When we are calling the change state, we are just using that set state, right? From hello world to hello gigs, right? So you will see hello gigs. Whenever you are clicking here, hello gigs will be getting changed here, right? So this is the way you can also manage the state and you can change the state here. So how you will do it, you can just create a particular class which is extending a react.component, but make sure that you are importing these two modules, react and react dom. You can define the constructor if you need it, and then you can define any other lifecycle method. But apart from that, you need to have that particularly a render method. This render method is basically a will be having display, right? So that is, and then basically react dom dot render, you can call this, and you can use this particularly component, right, along with this. So this is the way you can, so this particular syntax is remains same. I already told you where this is root is available, that is available into index.html. The process will start from index.js. So anything which we are just appending and we are starting, so we will just use it as a reference, as a root, as a div id, and then we are just attaching it, correct? So we are passing that particularly component name here. So this is the component name you will use it, right? Test class test, right? So this is the way you can write that these two components.